We're on to doing dimple dies now. So we're going to add this as a little bit of of style, a little bit of flair to the back of it. And what a dimple die is everybody's seen one at some point. It's a neat way to take and add a little bit of dimension to just a hole. So if like you're building a frame, and for instance on our gussets here we've got little holes, but you know, we don't want to use a dimple die on something like that because the way it works is it's going to leave kind of a beveled edge to it. So you don't want to have a beveled edge on something like a gusset because you know it's one-sided. But we're going to put some dimple dies into this piece, which is going to act as kind of a skirt across the back of it, give it kind of a finished look. So we start out with the hole that's going to be drilled, and then we use this along with a press to push that steel out and to give it that finished kind of beveled effect. We're not going to use one this big though, because this is a 1-inch dimple die. That'd be a little bit of an overkill on this piece. Plus we're trying to fit our trailer hitch, so we're putting a trailer hitch on this thing. So we're going to go with a 1/2 inch. A lot smaller, but it's still going to give it kind of a neat little effect. So what I did was started out by bending this steel, getting it so that it's going to fit pretty damn good across the back of it here. Obviously we got to weld it and hammer it a little bit, make sure it's going to fit correctly, but we're at the point where we're ready to start doing some drilling. So, you know, we've got it bent to fit the shape of it, and then I went ahead and I marked all of the spots where we're going to go ahead and drill it out. So we're going to do a couple of lower ones because the trailer hitch piece is going to fit right up in here, which this is actually a control arm tab for like if you're building an off-road rig, an XJ, you know, any kind of Jeep or whatever. Common to use these things, but it'll work perfectly for a trailer hitch. Probably a little bit of an overkill for what we're gonna tow behind it, but it'll work. So yeah, we'll where the X's are is where we're gonna drill them out. So we're gonna have the two of them a little bit lower because we're gonna have that that piece right there. It's gonna, you know, it's gonna take up a little bit of this space. You'll still be able to see them. So next step is to take a center punch to make sure that we give ourselves a good indentation for our drill bit to stay put. Otherwise you're gonna have the bit walking all over the place on you. It's gonna look like shit and it's gonna drive you nuts. So we're gonna start out by doing this. We're just gonna hammer these pieces in, and then we're gonna take it over to the press.
Alright, so the next step, now that we have everything punched out, start drilling holes. You never want to just jump to your biggest bit. You want to start off with a pilot hole. So we got this tiny little bit here, and we're just going to pilot all the holes. So now that we got our pilot holes drilled, as you can see here, we are ready to go up to the next size. It's always one click.
Always one click. That's gotta break your arm.
Yeah, so like that. Final step, we're going to use a unibit and jump her up to 1/2 inch. So, this one's been used a couple of times. Let's knock this out. We have all these beautiful holes.
Did you bust the trace?
That's hot. God damn it.
Alright, so it's time to actually put the dimples into this. So it's kind of neat, like they machine these things so that, you know, one side has the bevel on it and the other side has this ridge. And they fit into one another. So like, because these things are made of way stiffer material, way firmer than what you're pressing with, it forces it to take on that shape. So what you do, depending upon which direction you want the bevel to go, in this case we want our bevel to point backwards, so we want the indentation to move its way back. We're going to put it in like that. And we take this, line that up there, and we're going to put this thing into the press. Yes, it's a cheap press, but it does actually work pretty good. So we get ourselves lined up. Presses are under an incredible amount of force, so you want to make sure that you get this stuff right. Make sure that everything's actually tightened up and straight, or straight enough. And so now what we're going to do, kind of line this up so you can see it pretty good. Again, we want it right. There we go. So we're going to start pressing it, and you'll see them go. It's weird that it bent it like that.
Yeah, that bent the crap out of that.
Weird.
So hey Jake, what are you doing?
So we found the maximum thickness of steel that can be pressed with the dimple dies before it warps the shit out of it. So this is actually after about 5 minutes of beating the crap out of it with a hammer and playing with it in a vise. So this is actually straight compared to what it was. It was all crazy, which you guys saw the first time that I pressed it. But the good news is it's steel, so you can hit anything with a hammer enough, it'll eventually go the direction you want it to. So we're gonna straighten this thing out, and then we're gonna weld it as we go. Keep hitting with hammers.
Try and line it up a little bit.
And you can see it's starting to straighten out now.
Yeah, it's a little bit straighter.
It's a little straighter. It's still a little bit concave, but yeah, it'll look nice eventually.
Said that about a girl before, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, she'll clean up eventually.
Isn't that like every 90s like teenage movie is like that premise?
Yep, yeah. Pretty much. She might be shit now, but a little bit of work.
And it'll definitely have Freddie Prinze Jr. in it.
Yep. Bowman. Yep.
Get my good side.
There's no good side.
Figure I might as well use the 10 gauge for it, or 1/8 inch, or whatever the hell this is. Alright, so I gotta make a tab. Our brake setup here on the back just kind of like, just hangs out, kind of like rides on the axle. Axle moves independently of it, and this little pull arm here is what actuates the brake. So it needs to stay put, so we're going to put a little tab right here, and then we'll fab up something for this fucker.
That guy?
This guy.
That little dude?
That little dude.
That little guy? I don't want to worry about that little guy.
I'm not worried about that little guy. Where the hell did I put that piece of steel? It was just in my hand. My pocket.
No,
There it
it's
is.
right there.
There it is. Alright, and in addition to that stuff, we are going to run our wires through the neck. It'll be a little bit cleaner that way. So we got our hole drilled right here. Wires are going to come out down in this area. We've got our battery box, so wires will come up and out, run through some kind of shielding, either a split loom, or we're going to try and find like a 3-wire encased in a
SO cable. That's the technical term.
SL cable is
SO.
SO. Significant other cable. So that'll come up over here and run through, and then we're going to have it come out up by the neck tube. So we'll drill a couple of, widen out this hole here, and it's going to just kind of come out, go to the headlight, and go to our main switch. So that'll be it. So we're going to get started. I can find the little dimple. That's not the dimple. This is gonna kill my wrist. Yup.
Just like that.
So when we got this all kind of stabilized in place, it actuates the brake. It's sweet.
So there'll be a lock on this side to help keep everything from sliding over.
Yep, and on this side as well.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So, anybody looking to do this kind of a brake setup on their bicycle or tricycle, go to Brembo's website.
Yeah.
Click on 4Pod.
www.brembo-didn't-authorize-this.com. So our brake cable needs something to run inside of, because I mean we could probably make some mounts, but ultimately the brake cable, the sheathing has to stay put. So 1/4-inch brake tubing for like hydraulic lines just happens to fit this line in it really well. right up until the bend. So we'll see how it works out on the bend on this side. But anyway, so it'll fit inside there, and it'll provide a stopping point for the sheathing, but not for the actual cable itself. So we're gonna weld this piece on here, and this is gonna kind of just help guide it. It's gonna give it a very specific direction to go. So I'm gonna do that. Yeah, so that'll guide it really well. Depending upon how we attach the cable to it, well, that'll
that's simple.
play a role.
That's stupid simple. I already know how to do it.
Perfect.
They make a little pincher guy for like carburetors. We'll just put that on there. So you run the cable through it, and then you just tighten it down, and it'll squeeze it into place, and you're done.
Perfect. Yep, let's do that then. So I'll tap this part.
Remind me, I have a couple sitting at home.
Oh, okay. All right.
More than enough.
Biggest thing with welding onto this is you got to be really careful not to, like, you don't want to burn into it or warp the inside. So now we'll just try and bend it, but we need the facade.
Sounds so sophisticated, and people are gonna see. Well, actually, nobody will see that. People will see this at home and be like, that's really over engineered, but
Yep.
see.
Alright, so it's got to be a fairly tight bend then, where it'll bend and maybe do a little bit of a loop.
You need a loops.
Yeah, loops are good. Loops keep things from binding. That's pretty tight. Just tack it right there.
Let's make sure it. One thing you have to be careful is not to get a whole lot of powder coating or powder in there. You're gonna pinch that shut. Yeah.
A little plug in it.
Little butt plug and.
Yep. Kind of look like little butt plugs.
How do you know what little butt plugs look like? Anything's a butt plug up here, brave enough.
This is very true. There you go. That's our first T-shirt. Anything's a butt plug.
If you're brave enough.
Brave enough.
Gerbils? Sure, why not? Small cactus? Alright, cool. 10mm socket?
Ooh, that's good. That's why they're all lost.
Exactly.
Yeah, today we're doing electrical.
Yeah, and we'll be doing more in the future on some other projects that are a little bit bigger and a little bit more in depth. This is going to be very basic, power and ground, and switch.
Yep, pretty much. We don't even have to have relays on this one because the amp draw is measured in milliamps, not in actual full-on amps. So we don't really need anything that's too intense. So a very basic couple of switches here. I mean, these things are good to like 5 amps or 10 amps, something like that. We're not going to exceed that with a couple of LEDs. So
no, and if for some reason we do have a fuse we're going to be wiring in, just for peace of mind. 5 amp fuse will probably never blow unless the battery gets shorted out or something stupid.
Exactly. It's more to protect the circuit than anything else. Not for exceeding it, because I don't know how we would ever exceed it on this thing.
Yeah, and even the cigarette light in the back will never have anything too powerful, except for maybe some LEDs.
Yeah, exactly. Which that is going to be taking power directly from the battery. It's not going to be a switch source, because one of the coolest, electrical features that we've got on this thing is it's a cigarette lighter that is also our charging port. So you can get trickle chargers or like small amperage chargers for really any kind of battery, whether it's for a boat or it's for an ATV or a motorcycle or a car, and you want to, or a tricycle, and you want to send a small amount of amperage to kind of keep it charged up, more of like a protective thing so it doesn't freeze or whatever in the off season.
And that's a big issue here.
It is a big issue here when it's, I think today it's 2 degrees outside.
I think we hit 4.
We hit 4. We hit 4 today. So yeah, we got to keep our batteries alive. And for this thing, because we don't actually have a charging circuit, there's no generator, alternator, anything like that, we have to charge it. So what we're doing is we're taking a trickle charger and we plug it in through this port back here. So at the end of the day or
weekend,
yeah, just plug the sucker in and it'll charge up our 12-volt battery.
In theory, with only running a little bit of LEDs, this battery should stay fully charged for a while.
It should. It should. So we'll have to test it out and see how long it'll actually last, because we've got one LED up front, we got a tail light that we're using, one of these strip light style ones. So that's going to draw a little bit because there's probably a dozen LEDs, maybe a little more than that in there. So we're going to get into it. All right.
We are using butt connectors. Some people like to solder, some people like to use butt connectors. I use butt connectors. I like to say butt. That's what I like. These just slide on.
That?
Yeah,
It started moving immediately.